Our news are pretty minimal this week. I would want to point out, and I'll share the screen so you can see it if I can figure out which one it is. We put up this week more details about technical assistance grants, including an invitation for an informational meeting April 29th at 7 p.m. So this is rolling out. We will have tags available up to $15,000 we're planning on. And it's Zoom meeting for the evening of Thursday, April 29th. You can get to that webpage, which is, well, the URL is up there. If you just search for tag, TAG, sorry, can't spell, tag MassDEP, that will bring it up in Google pretty quickly. So that's there. We should also be announcing very shortly the MOSPR, the Oil Spill Act grants, the first round of those. They're working their way through the approval process. So looking forward to that. There are Earth Day is next week. Speaking of great and exciting, fun things, maybe there will be things to get out. We're planning some events for the department, kind of as a whole, and for Massachusetts. So there will probably be news coming about some events there from us, and I'm sure EPA has stuff as well. And if you hear of any interesting things, let us know. I'm not sure how much of this is going to be virtual versus how much is going to be in person, but I think we're trying to plan at least a couple in person, but still at a distance events. So we'll see how that goes. None of which I can give any details about because they haven't decided yet which ones they're going to be pushing. There was an LSP board meeting on Tuesday, which I didn't attend, but I at least feel confident that the invitations went out for that. If any of you have any updates from there, how it went, let us know. And PFAS, because what would a office hours meeting be without an update on the PFAS? And I have no updates on the numbers. I checked just before this meeting, and the database that I have access to is reporting the same numbers that we saw last week for the private well sampling efforts. There's still a bunch in the queue waiting for results to come back. We've gotten results back from 50 private wells. And as I mentioned last week, or showed last week in a nice little pie chart that I'll show in the future when it changes, we have one hit above 20, 2 hits less than 20, and basically the rest, or 2 hits between 10 and 20, and the rest are low levels of non-detect. So, so far so good. I'm knocking on wood that it doesn't get the percentages of higher hits continue to be relatively low.
Hey, Paul, quick question.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for sharing that. Is that, when you mention those numbers, is that for just the PFAS 6 that DEP is regulating, or is that reflective of, any detects?
Those results are specifically for the PFAS 6. I don't have access to, and I'll say I don't have access yet. I can probably ask for even more detailed results, but as you may know or may not know, all of this is being coordinated through the drinking water program, and they are very focused on the PFAS 6 in the data systems that are set up, because that's the MCL, obviously, and so that's from their perspective, the most important point in comparing the levels. But we should have data, and as we get more information in and can look at it, there'll be a lot more information that can be kind of teased out of all of this, because they are looking for more than the 6.
Okay, that's great. And then Another, speaking as a person, you know, in one of the communities that it's going to be offered to, you know, I think it would be impetus for people to understand that the frequency of detections is so low based on the data, you know, well, knock wood, that you've collected so far, because there's definitely been a lot of concern and hesitancy from some folks just because there isn't the blanket residential exemption. So I think if people had an understanding, like, look, you know, we're not finding, you know, huge pervasive problems, but you know, just to put a little bit more perspective, I think it could actually be a benefit to sort of share that data publicly, not in a disclosure, you know, here's the house where it came from way,
Right.
but just in a broader way. So that would be my suggestion if you have any interactions with the drinking water people.
Oh, we have interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, what we're somewhat limited by now is the small number of samples that have actually come in, results that have come in. You know, you know, as you probably know, has the program met with your town yet?
Oh yeah, we had a
Yeah,
very lengthy meeting
you
with
had the introductory meeting. Okay. How-
um and we gave some suggestions which they said that they liked, and we're gonna allegedly discuss, but it doesn't appear that anything was sort of carried forward from the suggestions we provided. And we basically got a note saying, like, you need to get more, like, I guess we've had a very low participation rate in my town so far. I did warn them that half my town was attorneys, so to have a lower expectation. But anyway, so you know, we're trying to work with them to you know, encourage it with eyes open. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think once we have more of the data, and you know, I would like to have 100 samples in before widely showing around the data that is starting to trickle in. And but for the kind of random, as you probably saw, Lisa, and explaining to everybody else, we're kind of doing outreach to each of the towns and the boards of health before the program starts to talk with them. And so it's context that Lisa was meeting with the drinking water program staff and explaining it. And they should be coming with maps, kind of gridding out the town. And we're kind of two pieces of the program. Part of it is trying to get enough volunteers to fill out that grid. So we have some samples in each of the grids, so we get good distribution across the town. And that's what I, you know, not entirely correctly would say would be the random samples for the town. And then there are also facilities identified where there are more targeted samples around those facilities, and the facilities are identified based on potential for being a source of PFAS. So in the, you know, another thing in that, you know, graph, and as the results come in, it would be important to distinguish between the random samples versus the targeted, because one would expect that the targeted samples would have a higher hit rate. And a homeowner considering whether to participate in this program or not, you know, one of the things that might, you know, influence their decision is whether they would be in the random category or the targeted category. I'm not sure how that would work on influencing them. I can see it going either way, but it's certainly a key piece of information.
Yeah, I mean, I think we tried to give a little bit of input because, you know, there's General Chemical in Framingham, which abuts our town, and, you know, and Course Brook, which is right on the border there. And so, and then there's Main Street, you know, so we tried to work with them to maybe tweak some of the locations to places that we thought might be good. But I think, and I don't know if Wendy's on the call.
Wendy
Yeah.
is there, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this is something, I don't know if Wendy, you can pipe in after this, but we did confirm with our fire department that they don't have AFFF, and they didn't have really a history of it, but there had been a fire training area sort of on the border. And so we told them, you know, you should probably get some samples over here, even though they don't have a history of using AFFF. But I think that, you know, I had some anecdotal conversations with our fire department about have they ever used it to put out a fire, and you know, it didn't seem really like they had. But I think that's a big question that some of us keep thinking about in terms of, you know, figuring out what's anthropogenic backgrounds for PFAS. How should we be looking at that? You know, whether it's the pesticides, if they ended up having, you know, absorbing the PFAS from the containers and then get sprayed in a manner, you know, in accordance with packaging, or if a fire department put out a fire that used AFFF, you know, how is that going to be perceived by wayside cleanup, and getting into that whole anthropogenic background question.
Yeah, and those are certainly things that we're hoping this testing will help kind of answer what the prevalence is and what the concentrations are, and where you do see, you know, particularly in the random sampling, things come up, whether you can look around and see things like, you know, pesticide use or septic systems or fires in the area, that sort of thing. Yeah, we did learn recently, which other people knew, that the Department of Public Safety and the Fire Services folks have a database that they track a lot of the fire response, incident responses for fires, and we're hoping to get some access to that to answer some of those questions as well.
So Paul, just to follow up with what Lisa was saying, you know, not related to private wells necessarily, but is DP considering that training, use of AFFF in training would be treated the same as its, for lack of a better word, real use with a non-training fire incident? Or is DP making a distinction in those uses?
Well, right now we're trying to figure out where it is and what the concentrations are and how it got there. I mean, I think your question, what Lisa was referring to in some things that I know are on the minds of other people on the call, is, okay, now that we know it's here, what happens? And that's what we're trying to figure out. And you know, the focus has been on identifying people who are drinking contaminated water and trying to get that dealt with. And then you know, it's not the most straightforward regulatory or legal scenario. And because of that it's not straightforward. And I would point out, I'm not a lawyer. And you know, I would just say that all of those things are, you know, being thought about.
So still in flux, because
yeah. And I understand, you know, people, including DEP staff, are, you know, not uncomfortable living in the universe where, you know, important questions like that are in flux, and everybody's trying to figure it out. But there's, but you know, to do it right and to figure it out, it does take some time.
So, yeah, because we've had some members report that some situations with AFFF being used for its intended uses have become RTNs, and then other situations where that hasn't been the case, or where they've been told it hasn't been the case. So that inconsistency, if you will, is something we should expect and you're aware of, or how would you respond to that?
I'm going to go back to the, you know, even though it seems like we've been doing this for a long time now,
yeah,
and have been very focused on it, we are still trying to figure out what it is, where it is, how it got there, and it's not always as straight, you know, so straightforward and clear. And I think what we are finding and seeing is that when you dig into a lot of these situations, there are multiple potential sources and different factors at play. I don't think we've yet established the nice, clean, routine. This is what happened, and here's what's going to result from that. And that's what we want to work towards, identifying at least types of cases, situations where if you find this and it's in this context, then here's what you do. We don't have enough of those yet to clearly develop that.
Okay.
Because as some of the potential sources we've talked about here, there is a longer laundry list of potential sources
Right.
out there that DEP is still working on. There's including atmospheric deposition and what's in the surface water. I think somebody, and I'm going to say maybe it was Matt, but somebody had just sent me the USGS study from Pennsylvania.
That was Larry.
Larry, it was Larry. Sorry, Larry. Matt just sends me a lot of stuff. Larry sent that out. Massachusetts is working with USGS as well on similar study. So there is a lot of work being done on the various sources, and that's even without talking about biosolids and land application. So a lot of the cases that we're finding are a little bit more complex, and so, but it's in everybody's interest, including DEP's, to try to standardize it as much as possible and figure out at least, sets of facts that, where it fits, then we know kind of what the progress will be.
Paul, I put that link from Larry in the chat, but it's only letting me share with you if you want to forward that one. Your security is
Boy,
Airtight.
well, we haven't been Zoom bombed yet, so I guess it has worked. Send to everyone in meeting. There you go. And again, thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
So, any other questions or topics you want to address that are not PFAS related? No, another quiet week.
Would it be rude to ask you what the status of the MCP revisions is?
No, not rude. Boring, maybe, but not rude. I think we are just about at the end of making revisions based on the public comments and developing the response to comments document. Liz, just shake your head yes or no. If you don't want, or jump in. And so after that, we do want to share it with their regional staff, senior staff, and let them know what the changes are. And all of this is a reflection that we read all of them and go through all of them and carefully consider that. But I think it's pretty much, I would say that part of it is done, and that was the hard part. So the timing then is, we make one last round through the regions, just mostly to let them know what's going on, and then it goes up the approval pathway. So a clearer road ahead.
So you got an over/under on that, Paul, or?
Yeah, those of us in the pool would really like to know where you think you're going with it.
What is it? Are we in 2020 still? This is what, the 470th day of March 2020. kind of, it would, you know, it is still a big package, and when it gets to briefing the people above us, it's not one of those things that you can just hand it to them and say, here, read this. It's self-explanatory. There are a lot of proposed changes, and then a lot of differences from in response to comments. So even the red line strikeout version, we're always asked to not only provide the red line strikeout version from the current regs to what is being proposed, but also what has changed since the public comment draft. So you can imagine something as large as this, the number of colors that are in the document gets to be unwieldy, and keeping track of that. So that usually means briefings and scheduling time for briefings so that people understand what they're signing off on and agree with it. And so it's scheduling that, and you're having time for people to go through it, which is always competing with, all the other priorities out there. So over under, I would love to say July 1st, but realistically, into the summer. So I don't know, Liz, what would your over under be for an effective date? Because of course we want to build in time for training and give people, time to go.
Well, we have left it that the effective date is 4 months from the publication date.
Yeah. So I
So
would say it would be effective by the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, or 2022 beginning. Okay.
But that it would be published and available, and as usual for the actual standards, people could use the new standards as method 2 standards beforehand.
and I think we would try to get the training in as much as we could starting after it's published, so we could start planning and
So
holding that.
fall 2021 for a big chunk of regulatory credits.
Yay.
for those of you following along.
And I guess as a corollary to that, Paul, or Liz, there had been discussion that certainly for the risk assessment component, there were a number of proposed significant changes in the drafts that we've been discussing, and that we're really going to need to, blow the dust off our 1995 risk assessment guidance document and, revamp it, because just, cumulatively, there have been a lot of changes in things. So I guess to the extent feasible, I would urge, Nancy and DP to consider maybe reconvening a work group to assist in developing, an updated risk assessment guidance document, just to, and that's something I think, I hope, can be done in short order, because I think there's just going to be a lot of questions, and it'll make all your jobs easier if there's, a really good pertinent guidance document that people can use.
Yeah, Nancy has been working on that steadily for the last year. So those revisions are underway, and I can pass along the suggestion that, she holds some meetings to maybe reveal parts of the draft that they've developed already.
Yeah, I think I would put it that she's developing a first draft of that so that people will have something to react to.
I think she's on the call, isn't she?
Nancy Messenger?
No, Nancy
Oh, here she-
Fitzpatrick's on the call.
Nancy Fitzpatrick, you get on that.
Yeah, Nancy, can you write that?
Wrong Nancy, sorry.
Okay, thanks, guys.
We can never have too many Nancys. Just want to say that. Nancy Fitzpatrick is as I mentioned, started out. Nancy and Peggy Shaw are here, and they are working on the technical assistance grants. So more Nancy and Peggy on April 29th. Spread that webpage around as much as possible for all of your sites, because it's good. It would be good for the LSPs on the call and the PRPs and lawyers when working with the local community. It's good to have a well-informed and educated community, and it would be good for them to have some resources to work with. So I think it's in everybody's interest to get these out and have the communities understand kind of what and why the work is being conducted. Any other questions, topics we haven't hit on? Lisa, using words like cumulative and significant reminds me that the bill that was recently passed by the legislature did include some calls for looking at cumulative impact analysis for permitting facilities, and that's some work that will be particularly in environmental justice communities. But overall, that's less of an impact on waste site cleanup. But it's an interesting development, and we'll be looking at policies and methodology development on how one exactly does that over the next year or so. That will be kind of interesting to follow.
Paul, this is Linda Siegel with a question.
Yes, Linda. Hi. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you guys? Well, it's nice to see everybody again. I have the question I have is about the tag grants and getting the word out, which I agree would be great exposure for as many people as possible. Is DEP going to, or maybe you already have, sent your notice about the meeting? Has that been shared with those that run PIP sites, public involvement through the regional offices? So
Yes,
okay, thank you.
it's been shared very widely. In fact, I don't think we've ever sent an email to more people. So,
Thanks.
which I hope isn't a problem, since we have it scoped out right now for 10 grants. So I hope demand doesn't exceed availability, but we have, we got all the list of the current groups from the regional staff. We also got the EJ points of contact around the state, and then we sent it to our general mailing list as well as municipalities.
So,
Thanks, that's great.
so Linda, did you not receive an email, because you are clearly?
Oh, I sure did. I received it twice, actually. And I shared it with some folks. So, thanks. Yep.
Yeah, I'll second that. I got it and I shared it also. And I think it's terrific that you're doing the meeting in the evening to make it more potentially, a broader group of folks who are able to participate. It's terrific.
Yeah, we were, and this is kind of just a very general question for people. We were talking about kind of the best time for doing the meeting, and people raised kind of pros and cons, but we ruled out the 9 a.m. during weekend meeting early on. But kind of I'll throw it out there, the question of is kind of later in the day, like the 4:30, 5 o'clock versus 6. I've been attending some meetings that start at 6, 6:30, which often are right smack of dinner. 7 o'clock or later. There are also concerns that, well, that's when like kids start to go to bed, and they, it's never a perfectly clear, oh, that's a great time. So we did settle on 7 p.m. figuring we'll give people time to get home and kind of make arrangements and set some time aside. But I'd be curious about anybody else's thoughts about, in that range of 4:30 to 7, if you're not doing multiple meetings, which might be the answer to the question, just do it several times. Have you found any times work better for people's availability and participation? everybody goes for 7. Okay, well,
Can't please everyone. It's hard.
yeah, it's one of those things I think where, you know, the more you think about it, the more you can run yourself around in circles of, you know, finding reasons why any particular time doesn't work. And there's probably no wrong answer between like 6 and 7 or something like that. But,
And no right answer either, if that makes you feel any better.
and no right
Right,
answer. either.
right, right.
But it's, you know, I view it as it's better than 9 a.m. on a Wednesday.
Paul, I can give a quick update on the LSP board meeting that happened on Tuesday. Just, I think folks might be interested to know that evidently the environmental seat that's been vacant on the board for probably over 6 years evidently is being filled. And that's being processed through the governor's office. Beverly, the executive director, and the board members don't know who that is at this point. It's happening top down, evidently. And there is also now a relatively new empty LSP seat because Farouk Sadiq resigned from the board. He's been on for almost 10 years. And so they're looking for LSPs to fill that seat. And the board will be sending around some language evidently that we can use, but the process there is going to be for people to apply or send information or whatever to the LSP board, and evidently the executive director and the chair of the board, Millie, will be talking with people who are interested there. So we should have some more information from them soon. And the other piece was that they have hired an investigator, and it's pretty much a done deal on board, evidently at the May 2021 meeting.
Wendy, is Farouk's seat LSP at large, or is he one of the specified?
No, it's not. It's LSP at large.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, nice, good. I'm glad to hear they're getting some help.
And also the risk communication course was approved, but I don't know if you know that already, but I was going to write to Nancy. Hi, Nancy. I see your name on the screen, so I'm going to send you an email about that one.
Yeah, no, I think I got an email that I'll forward along. Yeah, got buried somewhere. Yeah, so good news. They're on the personnel side of that. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? Plans for Earth Day? Ways of celebrating? No. Okay, then.
Well, I was waiting to see what DP was going to offer. I was ready to hop into that one.
Well, there will be some exciting offers out there, some possibilities, some involving money, some options involving technological innovations. I'm trying to sell it here without actually saying what's being considered, because they still have to approve which ones. But there are some exciting things going on. And we're also trying to figure out how much of it is going to be live and whether we can live stream it from the field, or whether it will be just zoomed internal remote. But I think there are some really cool things going on out there. So hold on to your seat. I'm sure it's going to be decided and announced very, very shortly. And then we can all plan it will be, we're celebrating it a week from Friday. I think that's when the events will be held. So keep Friday open of next week. Of course, it's really bad that that's school vacation week. Not that a lot of people are going away,
Yeah.
but certainly a lot of people are still taking time off. And kind of I'll close with what the commissioner has been telling us every time we have a senior staff meeting, which is take some time off. Get out of your home offices, go outside. The weather is turning nice. Put all of this down and go outside. And take a vacation too.
Good advice.
but not a week from Friday because that's Earth Day. And, if you're going to attend an Earth Day event, then you might as well be on the clock for it. Okay. So if there's nothing else, then we'll do this again next Thursday. And then we will have more than enough details about what's happening the day after on Earth Day. And plenty of time to still plan to be there. Okay, see
Okay.
you then.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Paul.
Bye.
Thanks, Larry, for the USGS link.
Yes, thanks, Larry.
Bye-bye.